I want to go back to Carrie's question and talk about specific tools that you can use to start to address this now that we know what we're dealing with. We'll be right back.
Hey Mel, I'm a 53-year-old woman, a creative leader with, to the outside world at least, a so-called great career, I guess you'd say, but with crippling anxiety and exhausting overthinking. Traveling, accompanied by panic attacks, what the heck. I've had this issue for 30 years, and all the guided meditations and mindfulness training pods in the world aren't helping. So what steps can I take to stop this, to heal and find a new peace before I chuck in the towel and just barricade myself in at home? Thanks for everything. Bye.
Welcome back. I'm Mel Robbins, and that was a listener of the Mel Robbins podcast named Carrie. Today, we are talking anxiety toolkit. How do you heal from it? We're here with the world-renowned Dr. Russell Kennedy, and we've been talking about how all anxiety begins in childhood, which is why if you're ever going to heal it, you're going to have to go back to those moments in your past and in your childhood that were painful, when you felt unsafe or separate. And I promised that we would take Carrie's question and now dive into tools. What are specific tools that we can use, Dr. Kennedy, to truly start to heal this? Do you print out a photo of yourself when you were little and you make that your screensaver, which it feels like we should? How do you start? Oh my gosh. Oh,
That's me at 3.
Rusty.
Yep, that's Rusty.
So for those of you who are listening to this and not watching this podcast on YouTube, Dr. Kennedy just held up the homepage of his phone, and there was a photo of him that's 3 years old. It just made my heart go,
Yeah,
oh.
he's pretty cute.
So
He's
what does
pretty
it do if you do that for yourself?
Well, that's the start, right? Because there's so much resistance to going back to visiting. That's the big thing, because the child in us needs this love and support so much that it creates all this alarm to get our attention. And yet, as adults, we push the alarm away. So it's kind of like, I think I might have mentioned this in the last, podcast that we did, is that if a child came up to you with their hands up in a grocery store, like they'd lost their parents, of course you would soothe them. But we have this alarm that goes off in our system, which is essentially the younger version of us going, hey, pick me up. Pick me up. I need some attention. I need some love. And instead we go to the internet and zombie scroll Instagram or go into our addictions or whatever. And we push that child away. So the child just gets louder. The alarm just gets louder and louder and louder. But there is a resistance to going back. So the adult doesn't want to go back and visit the child because the child holds all their pain. And the child has a real mistrust of us as adults because we've been ignoring their alarm for 30 years. So it's really important that we start slowly and you make that connection. So when you say get a picture, that can be really triggering for people. So sometimes I just say, in your mind's eye, picture yourself at any age as a child that you want. Picture what you're wearing. Picture yourself maybe at a happy time in your life. Like for you, it was like skiing or something like that. Picture yourself in this happy place. And that way you start making that connection. Because, just to go in and it's you're going to blow your brains out if you go back in and you go right to the child, go right to the trauma. So go to a place that you felt good. And I use this a lot when I work with people, is what was the best time in your life? Like what was the best time in your life, Mel?
I just immediately had this image of being on the front yard of our house in Michigan. And there were all kinds of kids around, and it was a beautiful summer night. And it was kind of that time of night where it's not quite dark, but it's not quite daytime. It's that beautiful. It's my favorite time of night, dusk, when the twinkly stars first start to come out, and it's kind of confusing because the sun's up, but you see the moon, and you know that the sun's about to set. And we are playing games, like we're playing base and statue and all kinds of just tag and like just that moment right there with my brother and a bunch of other kids in the neighborhood running around being kids in the front yard of our house in Michigan where I grew up.
Okay, so close your eyes and really get into that image. Like, see your brother, see your house. Relax your shoulders, relax your jaw. Nice breath in and out. Just really see if you can drink in the emotion of that. And where you feel it in your body. Where do you feel that in your body?
Oh, I kind of feel it from my cheeks all the way to my heart. It's like this sort of like definitely like for sure the heart.
Hmm. So this is something I would add to high-fiving yourself in the mirror is go back to the best time in your life. When you're high-fiving yourself in the mirror, because then we're getting your insulin involved, we're getting your brain involved in this whole feeling state, because the feeling state is what changes us. We can change our thoughts at a dime, but the feeling state is what changes our nervous system. So when you do the high five habit, when you're high-fiving yourself in the mirror, recall the best time in your life and just try and see if you can really get a felt sense of that. Now, what I will do with people who have suffered trauma is I will take them, once I have them grounded and once they trust me and stuff, I will take them into their trauma and then I will take them into the best time in their life. So with you, I might do, and we're shortening this considerably for the podcast, but for you, I might say, okay, if you feel safe enough that we talk about that kid, waking up with that kid on top of you and getting into that feeling. Now, where do you feel that in your body? And is this okay,
like
Mel, to
right
go into
in the
this?
gut.
Yeah,
Oh,
okay.
yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Like right in the
Okay.
gut. Like I immediately was like went from like the heart being full to like right in the gut. And the
Okay.
ankles, weird, the ankles.
So what I would do is I would go back and go, okay, now go back to that feeling of dusk. You can see your house, you're playing statue. It's fun. You feel calm, peaceful, happy. Now let's go into your gut. Let's go into that sensation again of, waking up with that kid on top of you. If it's okay to stay there for a second. And then lovingly go back up into that place in your chest and your throat where you felt really peaceful and happy playing with your brother.
It's amazing because I feel the gut like pulling me down. Like that. It's easy to drop into the gut.
Yep.
And the bad experience. It's hard to pull yourself from that back up into this experience that I can feel that's positive. Is that normal?
That's absolutely normal. We're wired that way, Mel. We're wired to pay more attention to fearful situations than pleasurable ones because in our evolution, that's basically what kept us alive. So in healing this, we have to heal this at a feeling level. We can talk about that kid on top of you for the rest of your life without really changing it too much. You might get a better understanding of it cognitively, but to really change that sensation, we have to use another sensation because that's the language of trauma is sensation. It's the body. So we use that good feeling that you have, and then we go back and forth. We oscillate between back and forth, and it starts weakening that power, that negative feeling in your body that you associate with being a victim, with being helpless.
Yeah.
And here's the other thing about, when I love when you say you're talking about play, because the way this comes into play is trauma activates both the sympathetic, the fight or flight, and the parasympathetic, the rest and digest at the same time. Because we're so confused, we don't know. Yeah, because once you get up to a certain point in sympathetic activity, your body can't handle it anymore. So it shuts down. So we go into parasympathetic. We don't go into pleasant parasympathetic, but we go into shutdown parasympathetic. And then it goes back and forth and back and forth. And a lot of us with anxiety, that's what happens during the day. We go into this place where our body just gets exhausted. So we feel okay. We don't feel that tremendous, anxiety anymore. And then once we get rested in the parasympathetic, then the sympathetic comes back online and we go right back into anxiety again. So the thing about play, and play is so important for healing, is it's another thing that activates both the parasympathetic and the sympathetic activity at the same time. So trauma activates co-activation, they call it. So trauma activates parasympathetic and sympathetic simultaneously. So does play. But play allows you to start metabolizing. So when you're in co-activation, when your parasympathetic and your sympathetic is active at the same time, it's like having your foot on the gas and the brake at the same time. When you're in play, you start realizing, hey, you know what? This sensation is actually okay. It doesn't have to fire me right into the trauma. So that's why play, one of the reasons why play is so important in healing trauma is because we get that felt sense of activation of both the parasympathetic and the sympathetic at the same time in a safe place, because play is safe and it's fun.
Okay, so going back to Carrie, and number one, it was very clear to you as an expert and a medical doctor and a neuroscientist that she's dealing with stored trauma. And step one is kind of recognizing that. And then the next thing she needs to do is to recognize that thinking keeps you in the coping, and that this is really going to be about dropping into your body and learning how to reconnect and heal in your body. And one of the things that you have recommended is that we think about this as younger self-work, and that you can go back to positive times and feel that good sensation, that if you're ready for it, printing out a photo of yourself or putting it on your phone so that you are reconnecting with that version of you where you started to feel separate or unsafe or scared. And that is a way to start this process. Is there anything else that you would recommend that Carrie think about?
Yeah, you have to do it slowly. You have to start, because the thing is, when we go into our alarm, we don't want to go in there. Like, it feels painful to go in there. So do it slowly, and this is, if you have a real significant trauma, emotional, physical, sexual abuse, you probably need a therapist, and maybe a somatic therapist, to kind of help you get into this place, because it's not for amateurs in a way. If you have big trauma, if you have trauma that's manageable, absolutely you can work it on your own. But if you have big T trauma, doing this on your own can re-traumatize. So you need someone else there. You need someone there who you wish was there at the time of the trauma. And that person is you. That person is you. It's like, you can go back. We can use our amygdala. We can use that sense that we are not locked in time. We can go back and find that, like what I have on my phone. I can look at his eyes. I can imagine his eyes too. And there's a great song by Peter Gabriel that I listen. We're getting into Dr. Kennedy's world a little bit. Every morning I do this meditation that I make for myself. And then on top of that, I end it all by listening to Peter Gabriel's song, In Your Eyes. So he has two versions. One's a recorded, which is about 5 minutes, and one's a live version. And he talks about in your eyes. And it's about in your eyes as a child. The light, the peace, I am complete. I see the vision of 1,000 doors. I see my divinity. I see my connection with myself. And I look at that little picture of me that's here on my phone while I listen to that song. And the lyrics of that song are so powerful. If you imagine, all my instincts, they return. Like, all your instincts return when you connect with that version of yourself that was hurt and in pain. That's what happens. And that's how you heal from anxiety and alarm. We could cope all we want, but if you want to heal, you have to find that child in you, and you have to show them that they're seen, heard, loved, and protected. And one of the ways that I do that every day is I start my day with that song, looking at him. And I use different pictures of me, but that's the main one because it's on my phone and it's right there already.
We are talking anxiety today, and we have our most popular and most requested expert back. This is a topic, whether you have struggled with anxiety or not, we are all impacted by this. And by knowing the difference between just merely talking about it and trying to live with it or struggle with it or cope with it and actually healing it, that's where amazingness starts to happen. And I want that for you.